The ultimatum. The message came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Every screen on Earth, from personal devices to massive billboards, flickered to life simultaneously, displaying the imposing figure of High Chancellor Vexthor of the Tyranny Empire. His crystalline exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lights of what appeared to be a ceremonial chamber, faceted eyes reflecting countless smaller images of the camera recording him. People of Earth, his artificially translated voice resonated with artificial warmth. For 3 decades, you have refused integration into our glorious empire. You cling to your independence while benefiting from our technology, our trade routes, our protection. This ends today. In the United Earth Defense Force headquarters beneath Geneva, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the broadcast with growing dread. She'd spent her entire career preparing for this moment, yet the reality felt surreal. Around her, the command center had fallen silent, dozens of officers frozen at their stations. We have captured 60,000 of your kind from various outposts and colonies, Vexthor continued, the camera panning to reveal rows upon rows of human prisoners kneeling in chains. You have 24 hours to submit to full Imperial control, or they will all be executed. Resist, and we will demonstrate that mercy is a luxury reserved for civilized species. Admiral Chen's hands clenched into fists. Among the prisoners, she recognized faces. Researchers, colonists, soldiers, people who had been gradually disappearing from remote outposts over the past month. The Empire had been planning this for some time. Director Wallace is on the line, her aide whispered urgently. The Security Council is convening in 5 minutes. Chen nodded, her mind already racing through scenarios. The Ketherans had underestimated humanity before. During First Contact, during the trade disputes, during the Proxima incident. Each time, they'd been surprised by human ingenuity and determination. But this was different. This was calculated brutality designed to break humanity's spirit. In New York, the United Earth Council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from every nation shouted over each other, some demanding immediate surrender to save the hostages, others calling for military action. Director Marcus Wallace, head of the UAC, stood silent at the podium, his dark eyes fixed on the massive screen still showing Vexthor's smug expression. We cannot submit. Chen's voice cut through the noise as she appeared on the chamber's holoscreen. The Empire has revealed its true nature. If we surrender now, those 60,000 will be just the beginning. They have our people. The Brazilian representative shouted. We cannot sacrifice them. And they'll have all of us if we show weakness, Chen countered. The Empire doesn't want submission. They want to break us, to prove we're the primitives they believe us to be. Wallace raised a hand, silencing the chamber. Admiral Chen, please tell me we have options. We do, she replied, her expression grim. But none that will save everyone. The Empire doesn't know about Project Shadowfall, or the Lazarus Protocol. We've been preparing for something like this since we first detected their ships approaching our solar system 50 years ago. The chamber grew quiet. Project Shadowfall was a closely guarded secret, a network of stealth satellites and hidden military installations that had been constructed in parallel with Earth's public space program. The Lazarus Protocol was even more classified. Chen herself only knew it existed, not its full capabilities. The Empire believes they're dealing with a relatively primitive species that got lucky with a few technological advancements, Chen continued. They don't know that we've been studying their technology, their tactics, their biology. We've planned for this day, even if we hoped it would never come. Wallace nodded slowly. How many can we save? If we move immediately, using resources they don't know we have. Maybe half. But the moment we act, they'll know we've been deceiving them. There's no going back. The chamber erupted again, but Wallace's voice cut through the chaos. Better to die on our feet than live on our knees. Admiral Chen, you have full authorization. Save who you can, then make them regret this day. Chen's image vanished from the screen. In her command center, She immediately began issuing orders. Stealth ships that had never appeared on any official record powered up in hidden bases across the solar system. Special forces teams, trained in secret for years, donned advanced combat suits reverse-engineered from captured Imperial technology. They had 24 hours until the Empire's deadline. 24 hours to launch the largest covert rescue operation in human history, then transition immediately into a war for survival. The Empire thought this ultimatum would break humanity's spirit. Instead, it would show them exactly what humans were capable of when pushed too far. In orbit above Earth, Imperial observers noticed nothing unusual. Their sensors showed the expected patterns of civilian space traffic, the known military installations running standard drills. They had no way of detecting the shadows moving through their blind spots, the hidden weapons platforms powering up, the quantum communications network activating beneath their standard scanning frequencies. The countdown to humanity's darkest hour and finest moment had begun. Breaking point. The first rescue operation began 6 hours into the Empire's deadline. In the cold void between Jupiter's moons, a Ketharan prison transport moved silently through space, its crew confident in their superior technology and their captives' helplessness. They never saw the human stealth ship approaching, its hull covered in materials that absorbed all scanning frequencies. Commander Maya Patel stood in the assault ship's airlock, her team of 12 operators checking their gear one final time. Their suits were the product of decades of secret research, lightweight, strong, and completely invisible to Imperial sensors. Each operator carried weapons specifically designed to counter Ketharan physiology. Remember, Maya's voice was steady in their encrypted comm channel. We have exactly 8 minutes before their next scheduled check-in. Speed is life. The breach was perfect. Shaped charges designed to work in vacuum cut through the transport's hull at precise structural points. Before the Ketharan crew could react, Maya's team was inside. Their weapons fired specialized electromagnetic pulses that overloaded the crystalline neural pathways of Ketharan biology. Guards dropped without firing a shot. In the prison cells, terrified human captives looked up in shock as figures seemingly materialized from thin air. United Earth Defense Force, Maya announced, her suit's stealth field deactivating. We're getting you out. Similar scenes played out across the solar system as humanity's hidden fleet struck at multiple prison transports simultaneously. Each successful rescue was a race against time. Hit fast, extract the prisoners, disappear before reinforcements arrived. But they couldn't save them all. 18 hours into the deadline, High Chancellor Vexthor appeared on screens again. His faceted eyes blazed with fury. "Primitive savages," he hissed. "Did you think we wouldn't notice? Did you think your primitive attempts at rescue would go undetected?" The camera panned to show a massive chamber filled with the remaining prisoners. "Watch now as we demonstrate the price of defiance." Admiral Chen stood in her command center, hands gripping the tactical display until her knuckles turned white. They'd managed to rescue 28,000 prisoners, but that left 32,000 still in Imperial hands. 32,000 lives about to be sacrificed to the Empire's pride. "Send the signal," she ordered, her voice hoarse. "Activate the Lazarus Protocol." Across Earth, hidden quantum transmitters activated. The signal they sent was unlike anything the Empire had encountered before. A complex pattern of entangled particles carrying a very special payload. As Vexthor began his speech about Imperial supremacy, every piece of Imperial technology within range of the transmitters received the signal. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, as the first execution was about to begin, Imperial systems began to fail. Their neural interfaces, crystalline structures that connected Ketharan biology to their technology, started breaking down at the molecular level. The signal had triggered a cascading quantum effect that targeted the very basis of their technological superiority. Vexthor screamed as his ceremonial armor stopped responding, its systems corrupted beyond repair. Around him, Imperial guards stumbled as their weapons and equipment failed. In the confusion, prisoners began fighting back. The Empire had made a crucial mistake. They'd assumed humans were too primitive to understand, let alone manipulate, the quantum crystalline technology that formed the basis of their civilization. But for 30 years, Earth's best minds had been studying every piece of Imperial technology they could access. They'd discovered its fundamental weaknesses, developed countermeasures, and waited for the moment they would be needed most. The broadcast cut off abruptly, but not before billions of viewers witnessed Imperial guards falling as their prisoners rose up. Not before they saw High Chancellor Vexthor flee from his own ceremony, his mighty armor reduced to dead weight. "All units, execute Operation Thunderfall," Chen ordered. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden fleet emerged from stealth. Ships that the Empire had never detected opened fire with weapons they'd never imagined humans could possess. The element of surprise was total. In the UEC chamber, Director Wallace watched tactical displays light up with combat data. "How long can we maintain this advantage?" he asked his advisors. "The quantum cascade effect will last approximately 6 hours," the chief scientist replied. "After that, they'll adapt. But by then, we'll have engaged them conventionally." Wallace nodded grimly. "Send the message to all colonies and outposts. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity does not submit to tyranny, no matter the cost." The next few hours would reshape the galaxy. The Empire had thought to break humanity's spirit with a public execution. Instead, they had triggered a response 30 years in the making. Humanity had appeared weak because they chose to, had seemed primitive because it served their purposes. Now the Empire would learn why that had been a mistake. As rescue ships retrieved the freed prisoners and combat vessels engaged Imperial forces across the solar system, Admiral Chen allowed herself a moment of grief for those they couldn't save. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. And the Empire would soon learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their hidden technology or secret weapons. It was their ability to face impossible odds and still find a way to win. Operation Shadow Strike. The Imperial capital world of Kethar Prime shimmered like a massive crystal in space, its surface covered in towering spires of living crystal and quantum metal alloys. In high orbit, the Empire's home fleet maintained their standard patrol patterns, their crews still processing news of the human rebellion. They never detected the small ship that slipped through their defensive grid. The Nightshade was humanity's masterpiece of stealth technology, a vessel that didn't just evade detection, but actively bent scanner waves around itself. Its hull, grown from engineered metamaterials, could adapt to any scanning frequency. Inside, Captain Elena Santos and her crew of 15 elite operatives prepared for what might be the most daring mission in human history. "Final systems check," Elena ordered, her dark eyes focused on the holographic display showing their approach vector. "Remember, we get one shot at this. The moment we're detected, the entire Imperial fleet will be on us." Their target was the Central Archive, a massive data repository containing the Empire's most closely guarded secrets. Intelligence suggested it also housed the control protocols for the Empire's automated defense networks. If they could access those protocols, humanity would gain a crucial advantage in the coming war. "Quantum signatures masked," reported Lieutenant James Chen, Elena's second-in-command. "Gravimetric distortion within acceptable parameters. We're as invisible as we're going to get." The Nightshade touched down in a maintenance sector, its landing masked by a precisely timed power fluctuation in the local grid. Elena's team moved out in pairs, their advanced combat suits rendering them nearly invisible. Years of studying Imperial security systems were about to pay off. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the larger phase of Operation Shadow Strike began. Hundreds of sleeper agents, humans who had spent years establishing cover identities in Imperial space, activated simultaneously. Communication hubs mysteriously failed. Supply convoys found their navigation systems corrupted. Military databases began showing inexplicable discrepancies. Back on Cathar Prime, Alina's team reached the Central Archive's outer security perimeter. Package in position. She whispered into her quantum-encrypted comm, initiating breach sequence. The package was a quantum virus, a piece of code that could propagate through the Empire's crystalline computer networks like a living thing. Once inside, it would create a backdoor for Alina's team while simultaneously corrupting the Archive's security protocols. As the virus did its work, Alina reflected on how thoroughly the Empire had underestimated humanity. They saw humans as primitive because they still used crude electronic computers alongside quantum systems. They never realized this was a deliberate choice, a way to maintain technological independence and develop systems the Empire couldn't easily compromise. "We're in," James reported. "Security systems are looping recorded data. We have 18 minutes before the cycle resets." The team moved swiftly through the Archive's crystalline corridors, their footsteps silent on the translucent floors. The few Ketharan workers they encountered never saw them coming. Precise electromagnetic pulses rendered them unconscious before they could raise an alarm. In the Archive's central core, Alina faced an immense quantum crystal matrix pulsing with stored data. She plugged in a specialized interface device, another product of decades of secret research. "Beginning data extraction," she reported. "Time to completion, 12 minutes. That's when everything went wrong. An alarm screamed through the facility, not for them, but for something else. Through the Archive's massive windows, Alina saw Imperial warships breaking formation, moving to intercept something in high orbit. Multiple human warships just dropped out of FTL, James reported, his voice tense. "They're engaging the home fleet." Alina cursed. The diversionary attack wasn't supposed to begin for another hour. Something had forced the fleet to move early. "New timeline," she snapped. "We have 5 minutes. Get what you can and prepare for hot extraction." As her team rushed to complete their mission, the space above Cathar Prime erupted in battle. Human ships, their existence unknown to the Empire until now, struck with devastating precision. Their weapons, developed in secret, proved tragically effective against Imperial shields calibrated to stop known human technology. "Download at 60%, James called out. "Imperial security forces are converging on our position." Alina made a quick decision. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Mark targets and prepare to move." Protocol Omega was their absolute last resort. A targeted quantum weapon designed to destroy data storage systems. They couldn't risk the Empire discovering how much humanity had learned about their technology. The first Imperial guards reached their position just as James completed the download. Alina's team engaged them with practiced efficiency, their weapons disrupting the crystalline neural networks that Ketharans relied on for combat enhancement. "Charges set," Alina announced. "Fall back to extraction point." They fought their way back through the Archive, their stolen data securely transmitted to waiting stealth satellites. As they reached the Nightshade, Alina triggered Protocol Omega. Behind them, precise quantum detonations began destroying the Archive's data cores, erasing centuries of Imperial records. The Nightshade lifted off under heavy fire, its adaptive hull absorbing and redirecting energy weapons. Above, the battle raged between Imperial and human forces. But the diversionary attack had served its purpose. Most of the Empire's defensive grid was focused on the obvious threat, leaving gaps for smaller ships to exploit. As they broke orbit, Alina allowed herself a grim smile. The Empire had thought humans were simple, predictable creatures. Today they had learned differently, and the data they'd stolen would help ensure this was just the beginning of the Empire's education in human ingenuity. "Mission accomplished," she reported to command. "Operation Shadow Strike is a success. The Empire's archives are compromised, and we have what we came for." In the weeks to come, the stolen data would prove invaluable. But more importantly, the raid had proven something vital. The Empire was not invincible. Their capital world was not impregnable. And humanity was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The war had truly begun. The heart of the Empire. The Imperial High Council gathered in their crystal chamber on Cathar Prime, the air thick with tension. 3 weeks had passed since the human rebellion began, and nothing was going according to plan. High Chancellor Vexthor, his once pristine exoskeleton now bearing stress fractures, faced his fellow council members. "How?" demanded Councillor Zixka, her crystalline form pulsing with angry red light. "How did primitive apes manage to breach our defenses, steal our secrets, and destroy our archives?" Before Vexthor could respond, a new alarm blared through the chamber. On the quantum display, dozens of Imperial fleet signatures were vanishing from the outer defensive rings. Not destroyed, simply disappearing. In the void of space, Commander Rachel Martinez watched through the Normandy's advanced sensors as Imperial ships fell victim to Operation Blackout. The quantum virus they'd extracted from the Central Archive was proving devastatingly effective, turning the Empire's own defense grid against them. "Multiple targets going dark," her tactical officer reported. "Imperial communication networks are fragmenting. They can't coordinate their response." Rachel nodded, her expression grim. The Empire had built their entire civilization on quantum crystalline technology, never considering it might become their greatest weakness. Every system they'd arrogantly assumed was unhackable was now turning against them. Deep within the Imperial Palace complex, a different kind of invasion was underway. Dr. Sarah Wong, Earth's leading xenobiologist, moved silently through maintenance tunnels with her team of specialists. Their mission wasn't destruction, it was understanding. "Second biological sample secured," she whispered into her quantum-encrypted comm. "The genetic degradation is exactly as we predicted." This was humanity's greatest discovery, made possible by the stolen archive data. The Empire's crystalline biology was failing. Their obsession with technological perfection had led them to modify their own genetic code, integrating quantum crystalline structures into their cellular makeup. It had made them powerful, but at a terrible cost. "They're dying," Sarah had explained to the United Earth Council. "Their entire species is slowly crystallizing from the inside out. That's why they've been so aggressive in expanding their empire. They're desperately searching for a solution." In the council chamber, the emergency had escalated. Imperial ships were reporting massive system failures across all sectors. Quantum communication networks were collapsing. And now, somehow, humans had penetrated the very heart of their civilization. "My Chancellor," a guard burst into the chamber, his crystalline form crackling with stress. "We've detected unauthorized access to the genetic research facilities." Vexthor's faceted eyes widened in horror. Their greatest shame, their species' terminal decline, was about to be exposed. "Lock down everything," he ordered. "No one enters or leaves the palace complex." But it was too late. Sarah's team had already retrieved what they came for: comprehensive data on Catharan biology, and their failed attempts to halt their genetic deterioration. More importantly, they'd planted something in return, a possible solution. "Package delivered," Sarah reported as her team made their way to the extraction point. "Let's hope they're wise enough to read it." The package was humanity's answer to the Empire's crisis. Research showing how their crystalline degradation might be halted, even reversed. Not out of mercy, but pragmatism. A dying empire was a desperate one, and desperate empires made dangerous choices. Above the palace, the space battle had turned decisively in humanity's favor. Imperial ships, their systems compromised by the quantum virus, were easy targets for Earth's advanced stealth fleet. But Rachel didn't order their destruction. Instead, precise electromagnetic pulses disabled their weapons and drive systems, leaving crews stranded but alive. "Send the message," she ordered. "All frequencies, all languages." Throughout the Imperial Palace, screens and quantum displays flickered to life. High Chancellor Vexthor and his council watched in stunned silence as a human admiral appeared before them. "People of the Catharan Empire." Admiral Chen's voice resonated through the chamber. "We know about your genetic crisis. We know why you've pushed so aggressively for expansion. And we have a solution." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We're not your enemies unless you force us to be. Your attempts to subjugate us have failed. But we're offering you a choice. Continue this war and face extinction, or accept our help and face a future of cooperation." In the council chamber, Vexthor accessed the data package Sarah's team had left behind. As he reviewed the research, his crystalline form trembled. The humans hadn't just discovered their weakness, they'd found a way to save them. And instead of using it as leverage, they were offering it freely. "How?" he whispered. "Why?" The answer came from Sarah Wong, her voice broadcasting across all Imperial channels. "Because that's what humans do. We solve problems. We find ways to survive. And we're strong enough to help others do the same." As the message ended, the Empire faced a choice that would reshape the galaxy. They had underestimated humanity at every turn, their technology, their determination, their intelligence. But their greatest miscalculation was assuming that victory meant destruction. Humanity had found a different path, one that offered hope instead of extinction, cooperation instead of subjugation. And in doing so, they had achieved something far more powerful than military victory. They had changed the rules of the game entirely. Reckoning. 1 year after humanity's counterattack, the Galactic Council chamber on New Earth hosted an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from both humanity and the Tyranny Empire sat together, alongside delegates from 24 other species formerly under Imperial control. Admiral Chen, now Earth's primary diplomatic representative, stood at the central podium. Beside her, High Chancellor Vexthor's crystalline form glowed with healthy blue light, the first success of the genetic restoration program. "A year ago," Chen began, her voice carrying across the chamber, "we faced extinction. Not just humanity, but the Ketharan species as well. We stood at the brink of mutual destruction. Instead, we found another way." The massive quantum displays showed scenes from the past year. Human scientists working alongside Ketharan geneticists, former enemies collaborating to halt the crystalline degradation that had driven the Empire to desperation. Joint fleet exercises where Imperial ships now carried mixed crews, combining the best of both species' technologies. "The treatment is working," Vexthor announced, his voice humble, a tone none had heard from a Ketharan leader before. "Our people are healing. The crystallization process has been reversed in 70% of cases, and we owe it all to human ingenuity and mercy." The last word seemed to cause him physical difficulty. The concept had been alien to Imperial culture, but that culture was changing, just as the Ketharans themselves were changing. In orbit above New Earth, Commander Elena Santos supervised a joint training exercise. Human stealth technology combined with refined Imperial quantum systems had created ships more advanced than either species had possessed alone. But the real breakthrough wasn't technological, it was cultural. "Amazing, isn't it?" her Ketharan second officer, Zixrel, observed. "A year ago, I would have rather died than serve alongside humans. Now I cannot imagine achieving this level of advancement alone." Elena nodded. "The biggest obstacle was never our differences," she replied. "It was the assumption that different meant inferior." Below, in the massive research facilities that had replaced Earth's hidden military installations, Dr. Sarah Wong reviewed the latest genetic data with her team. The solution to the Ketharan crisis had led to breakthroughs in human medicine as well. Controlled quantum crystalline integration was revolutionizing everything from cancer treatment to neural repair. "We've received another request for membership," her assistant reported. "The Proximan Collective wants to join the Alliance." Sarah smiled. The Alliance, formerly known as the Galactic Cooperative for Scientific and Cultural Advancement, had grown rapidly. Former Imperial subject species, seeing the benefits of genuine cooperation, were choosing to join voluntarily. Back in the council chamber, Admiral Chen concluded her address. "We stand here today, not as conquerors or conquered, but as equals. The Empire's greatest fear was that their weakness would make them vulnerable. Instead, acknowledging that weakness opened the path to strength through unity. Vexthor stepped forward. As my final act as High Chancellor, I hereby formally dissolve the Ketharan Empire. In its place, we join the Alliance as equals, no longer rulers, but partners in building a better galaxy. The chamber erupted in applause. Among the delegates, humans who had lost family in the imperial executions sat alongside Ketharans who had lost kin in the rebellion. The pain wasn't forgotten, but it was being channeled into determination that such conflicts would never happen again. In Earth's hidden quantum archives, a final record was added to the files of Operation Shadowstrike. It read simply, "Mission accomplished. Threat neutralized not through destruction, but transformation." Human capacity for adaptation and forgiveness proved stronger than any weapon. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Chen found herself on one of the chamber's observation decks, looking out at the stars. A year ago, those stars had seemed to hold only threats. Now they represented possibility. "Was this your plan all along?" Vexthor asked, joining her at the window. "To defeat us by saving us?" Chen smiled. "Honestly, our plan was to survive. Everything else." She gestured at the mixed crowd of species below. "This came from remembering what makes us human. We don't just endure. We adapt. We solve problems. We build things better than they were before, including former enemies. Especially former enemies." She turned to face him. "Because that's the real strength of humanity. Not our weapons or our technology or even our determination. It's our ability to imagine a better future and then work to make it real." As night fell on New Earth, ships of all species moved through the solar system. Research vessels, trade ships, diplomatic shuttles, all carrying the promise of a future built on cooperation rather than conquest. The Empire had tried to break humanity's spirit. Instead, humanity had shown the galaxy a better way. It wasn't the end of all conflicts or challenges, but it was the beginning of something new, a fusion of different species and cultures working together, each contributing their strengths to overcome their weaknesses. And at its heart was the most human quality of all, the ability to turn enemies into allies and crisis into opportunity. The stars no longer seemed quite so dark.